What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my Legendary Banner review and builds guide and fire tier list with Legendary Shez. So I didn't really expect her, but here she is as our new fire Legendary unit who can have the pair up effect and also boost the speed of the fire blessed allies. Despite having the blades, she actually is a blue dagger infantry unit. So yeah, many people are probably going to be missing that and getting spooked at first, but she is a dagger unit and she is going to be a very strong nuke. She's got Asura's Blade and this does give you +5 speed. Unlike a lot of the weapons, this doesn't really have that high of a might because this is a dual phase brave weapon, so of course they are going to be balancing with the lower might. So she does have 8 might, but she does get the +5 speed, and then she is completely immune to any kind of debuffs because she just got debuff neutralization to all of her stats in the combat. And the final effect in this weapon is going to be a better flashing blade because she's going to be able to get special cooldown charge +1 on both her attacks and the enemy's attacks. But because she's going to be nuking, mainly her own attacks are going to be mattering because when you're going to be having this kind of brave weapon, you're going to be able to trigger 2 cooldown specials like Glimmer, Moonbow, Ruptured Sky on your second brave hit if the enemy does not have any kind of like tempo effect or guard effect. So that is going to be allowing you to really hit hard and nuke very hard. And she does have her preferred slotty skill and Swift Slice. So this does give you +8 to all of your stats in the combat, and then it does have a bit of a convoluted description, but basically it means that if you're up against a human infantry opponent, then she is going to be needing 20 more speed than the opponent to pretty much get the effective damage against them. So this is, I guess, a reference to her getting her ass beat by Byleth multiple times in the story mode. So against the human infantry units, you're going to be needing a lot of speed, and this is not going to be realistically possible against many of the meta speedy units, which are going to be just as fast as her. So you're not going to be able to get effective damage against them, and they're going to be the main threats to her. But if you're a non-infantry unit, which means that if you're armor, flyer, or cavalry unit, and if you're a non-human foe, basically a dragon or beast, then she just needs to have 5 more speed than the opponent to get the effective damage against them. So basically you're going to be having effective damage against armor units, which are going to be the tankiest with the save builds, and you're also going to be able to have effective damage against cavalry units, which means that she can sometimes kill annoying units like Brave Sella, for example, who does have a miracle effect. Keep in mind that any kind of effective damage that she gets is only going to be for the player phase. It is not going to be active in the enemy phase whatsoever, despite her having a dual phase brave weapon. So in the player phase, you're going to be able to nuke much harder, but if you want advantage, then I suppose you're just going to be not getting any kind of effective damage. So having this kind of wide range of effective damage is always going to be helpful with a dual phase brave weapon for nuking them really hard and just killing them. But against the fast human infantry allies, you definitely need a lot of speed. If they're slow, then she's easily going to be able to get that because she's going to be pretty fast, especially with Sealed Speed 4. So this is same as Sealed Resistance and Defense 4, but for the speed. So it is going to be giving you the guard effect if the enemy does have a speed debuff. And if they do not, then you're basically going to be able to get the in-combat speed debuff on them. Then after the combat, you're going to be able to deal -7 speed debuff on them. So this is a decent skill, but not really all that good because it doesn't really help you with your damage output. I mean, it kind of does because you're going to be able to get the effective damage a lot easily, but there are definitely a lot of other slot B options that she can run, as you'll see in a moment. And then finally, she's got Attack Speed Oath 4, which is a perfect offensive slotsy skill, which does give you the teleportation and also gives you more offensive. So this is a reference to her Shadow Flash skill in 3 Hopes. I actually really like her kit because it has a lot of references to 3 Hopes. So if you have played 3 Hopes, then you're definitely going to be liking this kind of base kit, which does reflect well on her abilities and how, strong Shez is as a unit even in that game. So overall, in my opinion, Shez is going to be a pretty solid nuke, basically a nuke like Legendary Alm in a sense, where you're not supposed to tank them, because if you try and tank them, they're going to be killing you. And Shez is pretty much one of those units with her dual phase brave weapon and also having that easy effective damage, especially if you're a non-infantry unit. And that is going to be really helping her take out a lot of the bulky opponents. So she's a premier tank buster in my opinion and a very solid nuke. And she can also work as a vantage unit if you try and run speed preempt because of the dual phase brave weapon, but keep in mind that her effective damage is only in the player phase and not in the enemy phase. And the fast damage reduction infantry units are going to be a huge problem for her because it's going to be pretty hard to get the effective damage, and she doesn't necessarily have the highest might weapon here. And she is going to be depending on her special to do a lot of damage to them pretty much in the end with this kind of brave weapon if you're not going to be able to get the effective damage. A lot of Farseer tanks can have the guard skills and also run deflect missile, and that is going to be a huge annoyance for her as well, as is any kind of guard effect, because she doesn't really have any kind of null guard or tempo effect in her weapon. So that is going to be one of the obstructions that you have to face. So if you can run a tempo skill in her slot B, that is going to be pretty good with the special acceleration that she can try and get. And she is going to be a useful unit in Aether Raid's defense, especially against a lot of the safe tanks, and she is also going to be useful in Summoner Duels S. And you don't really need to run her with like Bridal Katria because she can already get the brave hit. So she's going to be a pretty good far safe tank buster there in Summoner Duels. And in Aether Raid's offense, she can also work as a far safe tank buster because she is a dagger unit and does have access to disarm trap. And of course in Arena, she is going to be scoring pretty high, so she's going to be a really solid Arena unit, but it's just that she doesn't really have any kind of retreat option like E3, for example, when it comes to a fire legendary unit. So you just have to, manage that essentially and nuke hard and delete units with her. So pretty standard offensive nuke in the player phase that deletes the units, gets the job done, and you want to run them with dancers. That's pretty much the end of story. Not really anything too complex, it's just that she gets the effective damage and the brave effect to nuke really hard. And you can definitely run a lot of skills on her. She definitely is pretty versatile. So let us go over some of the builds that you can run. I just showed you the build options, but the specific builds are going to be pretty helpful in the game modes. So when you're going to be running a budget Shez, you can just run Blade Session because you're mainly going to be using her in the player phase. So you're fine with Seal Speed 4, but if you can give her lull speed defense, which we did get from a Neo Lethe in the Free Ephemera, then she's definitely going to be appreciating that because she's going to be ignoring any kind of visible buff of the opponent that is towards their speed, and she already has a debuff neutralization with her weapon. So you can only debuff her speed and you can only buff up your own speed. So lull speed defense actually ends up being a pretty good skill that also boosts her damage output, which Sealed Speed doesn't really do, and still works with her weapon. You can also run Time Pulse so that you can have Luna as a 2 cooldown special and essentially trigger that on your brave hit, but you can also just, continue running the Oath Force skill and just be fine. You can also run Water Sweep on her or Wind Sweep on her and use her with Null Follow Up. So this can pretty much allow you to have a pretty good chance of taking out a lot of the far safe tanks, especially the dragons that run Distant Counter Dragon Sacred Seal in Summoner Duels. And this is a more Summoner Duels focused build. And funnily enough, if you can use Duo Byleth with her, then she can essentially get the Dive Bomb effect from her Duo skill and not even need the Sweep skill. So you just have to run Null Follow Up in the slot B then with Duo Byleth and get the Dive Bomb effect. So it's pretty ironic that she works really well with her mortal enemy. You can also run her with the Tempo skill, which is going to be so useful because you can have Time Pulse and Quicken Pulse bring down lethality to 2 cooldown, and because you have the Tempo skill, your special acceleration is not going to be getting stopped by a guard effect. So you can essentially trigger lethality on her brave hit, and that is the ideal scenario. You can of course give her the special acceleration with like Asker or Duochrome and just stack more offenses in her Sacred Seal, but if not, then Quicken Pulse is definitely there. You can also run Special Spiral on her to pretty much have a boot like Lethality in a way, because we're not going to be running Lethality but still getting the damage reduction piercing through Special Spiral 4. So you can run Luna here, which is going to be pretty helpful in tank busting, and by having Special Spiral 4, you can essentially have Luna at 1 cooldown. So even if the opponent has got guard skill, you're still going to be able to get the special acceleration with her weapon and use Luna on the brave hit to pretty much just kill them with the damage reduction piercing and the extra true damage that you can get out of the skill. You can also run her with Speed Preempt because she is going to be one of the faster units in the game. Even if I'm wrong with my stat spread, this is still an option that you can run. And you can also run Speed Smoke 4 not only to get the speed debuff on the opponents, but also in the case that you don't really kill the opponent. So the damage reduction is definitely going to be helping you as a backup. So it's pretty funny that Brave Byleth is on this banner along with Shez. So you just have the fodder right there to feed to Shez. right away, and she can also eat up another Byleth for Ruptured Sky, and that is going to be helping you take care of a lot of dragons and beast units and getting the extra damage against them. You can also use her in Aether Raid's defense with a Lult skill. So a Lult skill is going to be good because again, you cannot really buff up your speed if you have a Lult skill, and she doesn't really care about the debuffs because she has the debuff neutralization. So this is going to be pretty helpful there, and this could be run even in the Anima season where the Boogeyman Elamine does exist. So even then, you know, she is going to be a pretty strong unit, and this could definitely be used in Aether Raid's Chaos as well. You can also use her in Aether Raid's offense to kill many of the Farseer tanks if you run multiple dancers, but she does not have any kind of retreat option. So kind of, you know, annoying in that sense compared to Yuri. But then again, if the opponent has Kanto control, then Yuri is also not getting any kind of Kanto. And then finally, at max investment in Arena, she could be used with a build like this, and stacking up speed is always going to be good on Shez. So Speed Ivy is her best Ivy, and again, like I said, even if I'm wrong with her stat spread, I think I'm going to be pretty close, and she's just going to be having an offensive stat spread with pretty high attack and speed. So all of these builds do work on her, and I hope that this can help you decide because she definitely has a lot of versatility with the builds that she can run, as you can see. Let's move on to my Fire Legendary tier list, and we do have Eitri in tier 1. So the reason why Eitri is so good is because of the fact that she can be deceptively bulky because of the damage reduction that she can get out of her Sloppy skill, and she is a flying unit with flat Kanto too. So that is extremely good, and that is going to be helpful in pretty much any kind of game mode for just doing the hit and run, and she is also going to be able to function in the mixed phase. So she is going to be pretty solid even in Summoner duels where she could be a pretty consistent Pulse Smoke user because of sturdy impact and her bulk, and she can definitely pulse down a lot of the threats and their teammates. But keep in mind that Hardy Fighter is really annoying for Eitri, so try and use her with like a Brattle Katria team so that you can have the brave hits. And then in Arena, she is going to be the queen of the fire season because the Arena maps are pretty flyer favored, so Eitri is going to be having a field day right there, and you can also easily teleport and have the flat Kanto. So that is just really fun if you have her at +10. And then I would also put Shez after her. Now, Shez is going to be an incredible nuke, and like I said, she is one of those units that, you know, you don't really try to tank because you know that they're going to be hitting insanely hard, and that is pretty much Shez with her effective damage and the brave weapon. We have already gone over all of her builds and the potential that she can do, so I think that she does deserve tier 1. And then I also have Legendary Lilina finally in tier 1. It might seem a bit odd because she is an older unit and doesn't really score as high, but I feel like she has become a bit better with the inclusion of Embla, so her competitive viability in like Summoner duels and Aether Raid's defense has definitely improved a bit because basically with Legendary Lilina, with the save tanks, especially against like a human player, they're just going to be, you know, tanking the AoE damage with some other unit on the front line, and the save unit comes in and kills Lilina, but that is no longer possible because of undefended status of Embla. And then I do have Legendary Marth and Legendary Xander in tier 2. So Legendary Xander, I do use him so much, and he's honestly a pretty solid unit. He's not insane, but the fact that he has got Kanto and damage reduction, null follow-up, all of these things do make him a pretty solid mixed phase Cavalier. We'd of course have Summer Dimitri as like a player phase nuke, but overall Xander is going to be the mixed phase Cavalier who can definitely function in a lot of game modes and be pretty bulky actually for a Cavalier. And I have used him so much in Summoner duels, and he is also a very consistent Pulse Smoke user. You can also use him in Arena with just like Speed Smoke 4 to get even more damage reduction. And then Legendary Marth, even though he's a pretty old unit, he has to be run with R-Dual Infantry 4 for the max scoring. But like the weapon of Marth is going to be really good, and I don't think that I can put him in the same tier as Legendary Roy because that weapon of Marth can make him a huge stat ball, and we definitely have other options that could be run with him so that he can become even more annoying, and he can just provide him a lot of support. So he can function pretty well, especially with merges, and he can also function in Arena. It's just that he doesn't really have a way of, you know, retreating or enemy facing consistently against the range units, but overall he's going to be a pretty solid unit with that Shining Emblem and Binding Shield too. Then in tier 3 we move on to Legendary Roy. So I do think that Legendary Roy overall did get decent weapon refine and remix. It was not the most insane, but honestly it gets the things done. And now he definitely has more options to pretty much stack up more stats with his Slutsy and also get the special acceleration and the null guard. with the Weapon Refine, which is really helpful because you don't really have to run Velocity to get the Null Guard, and you can just run like Attack Speed Finish to get the healing. So the timing of Finish guilds and Legendary Roy's Weapon Refine is pretty good for him, so you can just run Vital Astra and run Speed Defense Bulwark and get a ton of healing. And in Arena, he can definitely be run with the tier 4 slot B skill to have the max arena scoring, so that is going to be needed if you're going to be trying to get the max arena score. And overall, I have used Legendary Roy quite a bit as well, and I'm pretty happy with how, his Refine turned out. Not the best, but still, I'm pretty happy how it gets things done. We also have Legendary Hector here as a pretty amazing support unit. So he can be used on a budget just as a support unit because of Ostia's Pulse, basically because of being a tactic time pulse, and it is like a global skill, so you can buff up your allies for defense and resistance, and he is going to be amazing in Aether Raid's offense as well as a Gale Force unit, as weird as that sounds, because even though he's an armor unit, he can just have access to Seahorse Axe and still double with Wings of Mercy. And it might seem like a weird build, but it does work out. I've used him quite a bit with this, and in Aether Raid's offense, he can just try and pulse down the Gale Force allies. In Arena, it is another story. Having one movement is going to be pretty painful. And he cannot really run the safe skills when you're going to be getting the Ostia Pulse support, but he can still try and use the new Special Fighter Force that he can retaliate back with his weapon, and also make use of the damage reduction in his Weapon Refine, and heal up the HP with the new Fighter Force skill. Finally, we finish off tier 3 with Legendary Ephraim, being a pretty good Gale Force unit with Null Guard and his Solar Brace 2, and also having Flat Counter 2. So he is going to be able to get the special acceleration with his weapon, so either he could just blow up the units with like Ignis or, just Gale Force, but he's going to be susceptible to Null Follow-Up. So that is something you have to watch out for. And I just want to say that tier 3 does not mean bad units. Definitely not in my tier list. They're still pretty good, but it's just that the units above them are going to be a bit better. But now we move on to the tier 4 unit who definitely needs a Weapon Refine and Remix. So Ascended Celica is just so much better with Soul of Zofia, it's not even funny, but if Legendary Celica gets a Legendary Alm tier of Weapon Refine, then she's gonna be absolutely amazing. Her Weapon Refine is probably gonna be in May of 2023 at the rate we are going at, so definitely gonna be waiting for it. And I'm definitely gonna be waiting for Legendary Edelgard's Weapon Refine as well, because she's such a cool armor unit who has got 3 actions. But unfortunately, she gets really outclassed by Summer Edelgard, who is such a better unit with that Brave weapon. And, Legendary Edelgard unfortunately performs pretty poorly in Arena despite being able to score pretty decently well. The reason being is that Assault Troop is not a 300 SP slotsy skill, and she's not exactly a save armor who needs to run like safe skills because she's a solo armor playstyle. So it is going to be a pretty hard thing to use her in Arena, definitely the most painful out of any kind of Fire Legendary unit, and she's also going to be getting her Remix and Refine in like mid 2023, but I hope that she can skip the line and actually, get her Remix and Refine before some of the other units like Bramimond and Legendary Chrom, because good god, she definitely needs it, much more than them. So that is going to be my fire tier list. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with it, and what do you think about it. And now let's move on to the summary of the banner and if you should be summoning or not. So overall, this banner is pretty solid with strong lineup, and it also has all of the Choose Your Legend 6 units. So if you want to spark a Choose Your Legend 6 unit, then this is going to be helpful, but I wouldn't really suggest going all out and trying to merge plus 10 them, because the Hero Fest banners in like Anniversary or Golden Week are pretty much better when it comes to plus 10 merging these Choose Your Legends units. And blue color is going to be the best color essentially with Ches and Brave Chrom and Legendary Myrrh. Red is also not all that bad because it does have the Wind and Fire Legendary color sharing. So if you're trying to get merges on both of these units, then it can be pretty good, and getting merges on Brave Seliph, who's one of the best nukes in the game, is also not that bad. Green also has a top tier mythic unit, Sather, and also a top tier water legendary in Legendary Ninian, so the color sharing is pretty good, and Brave TK is also pretty solid as a dragon tank, but she also provides good fodder. Some people might find colorless a bit lackluster because Brave Violet's playstyle is sometimes not preferred by many people with how she wants to Vantage Sweep, and the fodder of colorless pool outside of like Medias is not the most insane, like we have seen that before. So all of the colors are pretty much going to be pretty helpful here depending on your priorities. We are going to be having a newer banner on 1st of January, but we're going to be able to know about the units in the newer banner, I believe on 28, because they have done that for the past 2 years. So I think we're probably going to be able to get the trailer a bit before, and also the data mine, and they are probably going to be having a new desert theme, just like the Hatari theme that we had last year. So that's also a back-to-back like seasonal banner in January. And we also have Legendary Leaf and Altina getting their remix and refine. So they are going to be getting a banner. And Beyond Control, the Fallen banner of 2022, is also going to be getting a Forging Bonds rerun. So you're going to be able to get the tickets and also Spark on that banner. And with Engage coming out next month, I think it's pretty fair to assume that we are going to be getting an Engage banner in like mid-January, around like 17th January, I think. And probably a new arcane weapon. Probably going to be a physical weapon because they have been rotating like a physical arcane weapon, then a magical one, and then a physical one. So probably not going to be a tome. Probably going to be a physical weapon, I think. And then finally, we could actually get a new light mythic at the end of next month. And this is going to be the lineup of next month's Mythic Hero banner. So we could get a new light mythic because we have already gotten Astra with Zaether, we've gotten Anima with Arvel, we have gotten Dark with Embla. So at this point, we pretty much have light left. So I think it's fair to assume that it could be a light mythic, either in the colorless pool or in the red pool, depending on wherever they want to put more valuable units. And Realm Grima could be rerun because we actually do not have colorless units left. So it could definitely happen. And we could actually get Lumera or Veil as the mythic units because they are probably going to be doing the Engage promotion. So these two units do make sense because both of them are pretty mysterious and dragon, especially Lumera, who is the mother of Alir. But if they're trying to have other candidates, then I do have a short list of some of the candidates that could fit the light theme. I mean, Athos does have the 4-place tome, but they could also, just make him colorless tome because, he has got the mastery of, all of kind of magic, and he could also be a staff unit. Bragi could also happen because she could function as a supportive light mythic because she does have access to the Valkyrie staff basically. And she is the ancestor of Lean and Sylvia, who do have minor holy blood. So she could happen, and Suan is also a colorless armor beast that could happen as one of the Ashera's 3 heroes. We already have Altina, we already have Degensia. And that is going to be pretty interesting because we haven't really seen his human form, but keep in mind that he is the ancestor of Stefan, so he's probably going to be looking similar to him. And now let's move on to the other units present on this banner. I would also really like your feedback because I have done some graphical changes to the layouts, which I show here for each unit. So definitely let me know if you like the change or not with the pros and cons. So let us continue with the blue color that does have female Shez. Bravecrom is an amazing Lance Cavalier, and in my opinion, he's pretty much the second best Chooser Legend 6 unit. So I've used him a ton, and he's really amazing with any kind of Gale Force playstyle, and even in Summoner duels if you run the right teammates. But that's the thing, you have to run the right teammates with him so that he can get extra status. And his Fate Changed is going to be an amazing assist that is going to be helping you get +1 movement, get extra damage reduction, get a ton of extra status, and that makes him really fun to use. But he doesn't really have his own null follow-up in his weapon, so he pretty much needs to copy the null follow-up status from an ally and then go ahead and take care of many of the meta threats. And he can also function as a Gale Force initiator in Aether Raid's offense or even for hit and run. So there he is going to be pretty useful, and he is going to be relying a lot more on the allies and for the team building so that he can get these status effects compared to someone like Brave Seliph, who was also in Chooser Legend 6. And when it comes to his fodder, it is really amazing with Surge Sparrow and Speed Defense Neotrace, which you could get at the same time, and Infantry Speed Tactic, which is absolutely one of the best support skills that you can run on a non-infantry unit. The reason why I say on a non-infantry unit is because if you run this on an infantry unit, then you can only run one other infantry unit than themselves. So it is still going to be having the tactic requirement. So this is the perfect skill on like flying dancers or cavalry dancers, and this is going to be really good for just freeing up the slot B or secret seal of many of the infantry units from running null follow-up. Legendary Mir is right now the highest scoring legendary unit along with Legendary Ninian, and this just goes to show you that the Dragon Skills and the Distant Counter Dragon Sacred Seal, which is the only 300 SP Sacred Seal, has definitely made these dragons come a long way because she can function really well in Arena as a scoring unit and also function well in the combat because of her Godly Breath. and also Darkling Guardian. And Darkling Guardian definitely has its value increased as we have got many of the teleporting effects like Rattlekatria, Ash, and then we also have Winter Cordelia now. So she's definitely going to be having application in something like Summoner Duels or even in Summoner Duels S, and blocking those warping units is going to be really helpful compared to someone like Gatekeeper, who is not really going to be able to easily frontline. Mer can actually frontline even Brave Seliph, even though she cannot really kill him back, and that is going to be making her a pretty good unit in Summoner Duels competitively as well. And overall, she is going to be functioning as a pretty solid dragon with the tools that we have got now. And obviously, if you run Distant Counter Dragon, then there's going to be an opportunity cost where you cannot run Iota Shield Sacred Seal on her. So her fodder is going to be useful for many of the tanky dragons because you can get Defense Res Unity and Dragon Wall at the same time. So if they don't want to get bothered by the debuffs and if they have resistance to use Dragon Wall, that is going to be the best case scenario. Seither, our newest Book 7 OC, is definitely a really solid unit and a 10 out of 10 because not only she can provide you the support of follow-up negation status to the allies within 2 spaces, but with the future focus, she can actually end the turn of the enemies on the odd turns that have less resistance than her and they're closest in the cardinal direction. So this kind of thing is pretty insane for Aether-Raid's offense and also for Summoner Duels S. And in Aether-Raid's offense, you're going to be able to collect pots a lot easily, and you can also hit and run much easily, especially with the insane units that we have now, which have Kanto and everything. So Future Focus is going to be really helpful for those kinds of player phase focused teams. But if you're basically a tank, you can also end the turn of a threat. But keep in mind, once the action ends for the opponent, they can still get danced, similar to how a 7-slot unit can still get danced. So that is something you have to keep in mind. And I've used her so much in the Chaos season, and it was so fun, and she's just so busted with that Future Focus, even though it only works on the odd turns. And you just have to watch out for the res stacking units that could happen in the Anima season with Arvel and Mirabilis. Her fodder is decent with Still Water and Chill attack resistance. You unfortunately cannot really get both of these skills at the same time, and you have to use 4 inherits to get the Still Water. So that is going to be helpful for any kind of unit who wants to have visible resistance, just like Seither for like resistance check, and does not want to compromise on their attack, and maybe wants the extra attack for something like an AoE special. Legendary Ninian is an amazing water legendary unit because not only she's a dancer, but she's an offensive dancer, and she does have the conditional fire sweep effect against the blue units and also against any kind of foes that have the penalty on them. So this allows her to pretty much get another action after dancing up from like turn 2 onwards, and she can only do this every 3 turns, but that is going to be really helpful because it essentially gives her 2 actions, and that can be really good in many of the competitive game modes. And Ninian does have that Cavalry 3 movement, so that is going to be really helpful for refreshing a lot of the allies. And she also has half null follow-up in her weapon, so she is pretty much the best hybrid dancer who can not only function as a refresher but also hit really hard offensively. She is going to be providing you with attack speed catch 4 and speed resistance near trace at the same time. Or you could also get Blue Feud and attack speed catch 4, but you pretty much need the version 3 of the cat skill beforehand with something like New Year Liar. Blue Feud is still one of the better feud skills because of Ascended Idun, Brave Hector, and also Brave Dimitri being pretty prominent units. Brave Tiki is an amazing mixed phase dragon who is very tanky with her min-max stat line and also the damage reduction that she can get, and because of the follow-up attack that she can get in the both phases, she can also function in the player phase, and she doesn't really care too much about the guard effects because of the special that she can trigger in the combat. And she's also going to be immune to like lethality or deadeye because she does have the decharging, and she was the original unit to have decharging in her weapon, but then the other units got it pretty much as the effects. So she is going to be functioning as a tank, and the role of tank is kind of done by the safe tanks a bit better, who can cover their allies as well. But now that we have got Embla, Omni tanking is something that you can try and do in the Dark Season, and that's something that Brave Tiki can definitely do with her bulk and the skills that she has got. And having guard effect with Mirror Stance 3 is also going to be helpful, and what is also helpful is her fodder, because attack resistance finish 4 is one of the best premium skills that you can have on any kind of like slower dragon or slower mage, so that is going to be a very, very coveted skill. Brave Violet is a pretty strong mage nuke and can also function as a Vantage Sweeper because of having speed preempt and actually being really, really fast. And the Divine Pulse special that she has got is definitely pretty amazing, scaling off her speed and also reducing damage from foes' next attack by 75%. So that is really helpful, and that kind of damage reduction from Divine Pulse is actually immune to the piercing from Deadeye and lethality, so that is pretty good. And then she can also use that to get more true damage on her next attack. So she is going to be functioning as a pretty good unit in Aether Raid's Chaos as a Vantage Sweeper, but she is often going to be getting hard-walled by many of the Hardy Fighter and Deflect Magic tanks that you're going to be facing in something like Aether Raid's Defense or in like Summoner Duels S, so she definitely has to watch out for that. And Hardy Bearing is also something you have to watch out when you're functioning as a safe tank. And we do have some decharging effects like with Brave Tiki for example, and Duo Duma, and now also Ascended Young Tiki. So the decharging is always annoying because she needs to trigger her special. So the decharging is really annoying because she needs her special so that she doesn't die, and that damage reduction definitely can make her deceptively bulky. As for her fodder, she does have Speed Preempt, which is going to be a unique skill, but there are not too many units who can make use of this. I mean, Shez can definitely make use of this, who just got introduced on this banner. But yeah, you definitely need a good amount of speed to consistently make use of it. And she also provides attack speed catch 4 and speed resistance hold. But if you don't have the version 3 of these skills beforehand, then you're pretty much going to be only able to get one skill at a time. Medius is an amazing Dark Mythic who can open up the 7th slot, and he does provide you with the Unguard status, which is going to be protecting you from the chip damage of Savage Blow, and even if you run Fury or the push kills yourself, you're not going to be damaging yourself. So Unguard is pretty amazing for that, and he could be run with someone like Limstella for example, or Duo Liv, and he is going to be proving to be good allies with them. He can also protect you from the Bolt Tower, and that is going to be really important for any kind of low threat range team in Aether Raid's defense, because if you have a low threat range team, then you're really going to be susceptible to Bolt Tower. So Medius does eliminate that weakness, but now we do have Embla, who can function as a better 7 slot unit for many of the teams, especially the ones which have high threat range. But if you're still using a low threat range Katria ball team, then Medius is still going to be really invaluable for that Unguard, and also for becoming a really good frontliner. He is going to be giving you that amazing fodder and counter control and defense res ideal 4 at the same time. You will have to sacrifice a Valentine Lissa beforehand for that, but yeah, counter control is absolutely amazing for Summoner Duels and also for Aether Raid's defense, especially with the tools that Aether Raid's offense has got now. It's pretty easy to hit and run, and just restricting the counter movement can be a huge thing and can be the reason why you can win. And same goes for in the Summoner Duels, where you have a lot of meta units which have counter effects. Legendary Claude is a pretty solid Earth Legendary unit, but he does have his shortcomings now, and especially with the speed creep, a lot of units can be really fast, but having Null Follow-Up in his weapon and having Fallen Star giving him that damage reduction can definitely be really helpful for being really bulky and having that mixed phase, and the gravity effect can often be pretty helpful in something like Arena or Aether Raids for leading to some interesting plays or for just running away far enough. Speaking of running away, he doesn't really have access to Kanto himself, so that is going to be a bit annoying, and Fallen Star does not really work too well in Summoner Duels, as you're just going to be getting the damage reduction in your player phase and not really after that, so you have to watch out for that. And now damage reduction piercing is a lot more common, so he's going to be having a hard time initiating against someone like Duo Chrom for example, who has like a 1 cooldown Deadeye. So that is going to be really annoying, but still he is going to be functioning as a pretty good premier flying bow unit, and he does provide you with the fodder of attack speed catch 4 and speed defense rain 3. So if you have a newer Liar, then you can basically get the rain skill and the cat skill at the same time. Brave Seliph is pretty much the best User Legends 6 unit because he is just insane and one of the strongest melee nukes present in the game with his true damage and the 4 movement that he has got as a Cavalier. Not only that, he has got Miracle, which is going to be taking his survivability to the next level, and he can definitely be pretty annoying to face many times. So he is absolutely amazing for any kind of game mode, for any purpose, because not only he can hit extremely hard and ridiculously hard and even delete many of the blue units, but he can also live because of his Miracle and survive many of the things. So he is going to be absolutely amazing, and he's like one of the units which, like, if you have even a one-off copy of him, is going to be working out really good. He is going to be a bit susceptible to the stalled status, but not as much as his father because he is not exactly very slow, so he's never going to be like the direct target of the stalled status from something like Duo Thor. and it's rather, position based, so you can definitely try and escape the stalled status by positioning him better. But AoE specials will definitely wipe him off because he has very low resistance, so even, a green AoE mage can definitely try and kill him, so you have to watch out for those as well. Selif's fodder is absolutely top tier just like him, with attack speed Clash 4 being the main skill, and this Clash skill is going to be like the end game skill for so many of the Cavaliers and Flyers, and you can even use this on infantry and flying units with the Oath 4 skills, so it does count the spaces moved even if you warp. So it does have good synergy with those skills, and it is going to be providing you with attack and speed debuff neutralization, which is going to be really good, and it does give you a lot of offenses as well. So this is going to be the main skill that everyone is going to be foddering Selif for if they are going to be doing that. Legendary Sigurd has definitely passed the torch to his son, Brave Selif, who's a lot more common now. But that doesn't mean that the good old dad is not as good. He has actually become a bit better with Embla because he is going to be able to just terrorize a lot of the teams now when Embla can disable the save skills. And that was one of the things which was annoying Legendary Sigurd. But still, you definitely have to watch out for the stalled status as it is going to be pretty annoying. And he also has the 4 movement and can give +1 movement with Holy Knight Aura to his allies, which is going to be absolutely amazing as a support. And unfortunately, his preferred skill is not really as good as his son's, so you can definitely try and replace that with like a Neotre skill, which is going to be pretty nice with his 4 movement. Sigurd's fodder is decent with that attack defense catch 4, but that's pretty much it. I mean, Fatal Smoke can also be inherited, but it is going to be a bit more niche, and it's mainly useful in Aether Raid's defense, where you can shut down the healing of the enemy tanks. Legendary Lilina is the final unit on this banner, and she's an amazing cavalry nuke with that AoE damage of Gifted Magic, and also having Studied 4 Blaze, which does have Hardy Bearing built into it. So she can check a lot of the Vantage threats, and she can also have good movement while being an AoE nuke. And just like Legendary Sigurd, Embla does help her in Aether Raid's defense because the main problem with Lilina is that a lot of the save tanks are just going to be avoiding the AoE damage of her with their far save tank and only taking the in-combat damage, but Embla can basically disable that. So Lilina, in my opinion, does become a bit better competitively, especially for Aether Raid's defense, and that is pretty good. And she also has access to Still Water now, so she doesn't really have to run Life and Death and can get the extra attack and resistance out of it. And we also have the Chill Defense Resistance 3, which is going to be helping her in the arena scoring. As for the fodder, it is going to be pretty underwhelming because we have got Pulse Smoke from Groom Pent in the Free Ephemeras, and we have Sabotage Resistance on Solon already, and the solo skill is definitely not as good as the other options that we already have available. Make sure to share this video with your friends if they are going to be summoning on this banner, and if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me a lot, and if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks down below or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more Fae videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Shez against Byleth multiple times in 3 houses. So that's all, see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.